And this is the Historic and Architectural Review Board. I'm calling the meeting to order. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, so our first application is HARB 2016-04, which is 406 North Wayne Avenue. Are you present? That's you? Yep. Step up to the podium and tell us a little bit about the project.
Can I put this up here on the... I'm Mark Asher. I'm the principal for Asher Associates, and I've been before this board a few times, and I'm actually on this committee in my own hometown, so thanks for coming, because I know it's not always convenient. So the project, you obviously have the materials in front of you. We're taking down an existing structure and replacing it with a new single-family home. And if you have photographs of the adjacent area, of course, the home is fairly sympathetic to the historic fabric of Wayne. This is a home, like much of the work my office does, that's in a way intended not to make a big deal out of itself, and maybe in that regard, we're trying to make a big deal out of it. It's not a large home, just a home that we think is well done, good proportions, historically accurate proportions, good detailing, historically accurate detailing, and good materials and historically accurate materials. And that's really the essence of this project. On a pretty busy street, it's a rear-loaded floor plan, faces largely the back of the house, but we still wanted a street presence, of course, and that's what you're seeing here.
So that you're aware, as you go through, we don't need to review the internal plans. It's really a concern from the street.
Yes, I've heard that, but again, just as an aesthetic, faces rear, but still faces front. So, you know, again, I think it really, it's a house that I think when it's finished, we'll hopefully not know something happened in a way. Again, historic Wayne home. And I guess I can flip over to some of those historic photographs that are in this book. This is, of course, an existing home, but again...
Can you speak into the microphone, or we have a handheld one? Do you want to try this?
And where would that be?
Right here.
Ah.
I think it should be on.
So we're on here. Photographs of the existing, of the project, or the structure we're taking down, and not much to look at. And photographs of the site itself. There's an apartment building next door. You can see up here in the upper left. The subject property, and then just sample homes all around it, all of that sort of Wayne eclectic and historical typology. So those were our cues, and that's the home we have designed here. Not a large home, as I said, fully, you know, zoning, of course, is a separate topic, but all pretty comfortable on the site. So back to the colored version. And that's really about what I would have to say, unless you have any questions for me.
As I was reviewing it, I had a couple different things that came up. While we're not actually able to comment on the materials that are used, there are certain design aspects that came up that I'd like to ask you about. First and most apparent from the designs are the metal roof porch, and while your choice of metal or any other material is yours, the use of the, let's call it vertical slotting for the roof, that's something that is not necessarily indicative of the neighborhood or of the historic district. Would you like to comment on that?
Well, it is a material we use a lot. It's a gunmetal gray, essentially galvanized material. We're not going to put a blue metal roof on the house. So I've always found that those gunmetal gray roofs just sort of fade to the background, offer sort of an architectural highlight. Whether it's an absolutely historical detail for this area, it's a good question. Where the antecedents of them, interestingly, they do well on relatively low slopes, which the porch roofs and that little bay window are. So there's sort of a technical antecedent to it. I'm not sure if I want to put a roof shingle on those roofs, but just sort of its separateness, I think, is maybe it's not historically accurate, but I don't think it's inappropriate either.
I have a question. The house that's being taken down, do you know when that was built?
I don't know. No.
And
do you know?
I can share something with that. On maps up until about 1915, that house didn't exist.
Okay.
Prior to that, it was like open land for an estate, especially where that apartment building is. So at least until around 1915-ish, it didn't exist.
Okay.
I guess my other question too is, can you tell us kind of what elements from the neighborhood you feel like you're pulling in to be historically accurate?
Well, I think the proportions of the home would start there. It's a long, narrow home, long, narrow lot. So I think the proportions of it, the verticality of it, the steeply pitched roofs, the proportions of the dormers and so on, the eave detailing, most notably, I think would be something. And then, of course, the basic building blocks of the exterior materials, the cedar being the primary siding material.
Second to the, when we're looking at the frontage, the composite railing. The composite railing is a little different from what we find in the neighborhood. So you have the horizontal spacers that are between the vertical rungs.
Right. Yeah, I think that's maybe a decoration that we could revisit and just go back to a vertical rail, or if we play our cards right, we may not have a rail at all, actually. If we're close enough to grade, it's pretty close now, regrading just a little, just a little slope, that rail might go away, but I don't think, I think I'm more than happy to change out that decorative pattern.
The rail itself, there are plenty in the neighborhood who have either a slightly raised porch or a railing of that sort, but simply not with the decorative spacers that are involved.
Right.
I would ask that if you're going to do something, the details are crucial. If you want to revisit that, the other The other that I would say, or the two other items, I'll bring up one at a time. The brackets that I didn't see in the color version that you had, but that what you have now and that we have here, there are some brackets that are in the neighborhood that are in your use. Many of them are not visible straight on, but are in use from the rear of any of the support posts to the ceiling of the porch roof. Many of them are actually not straight brackets, but they're actually at a more complicated bend. Is there a reason why you chose that?
Well, I think it's interesting because I'm going to be back here in another month or two with in addition to a really historic, eclectic mess of a thing in Wayne with brackets flying everywhere. Here, so that's going to be an interesting conversation then. But here and now, I think the bracketing here is certainly decorative, not structural, and is intended just to give this house and that porch a little lightness, as it were. I think when we're looking at these homes, we're not necessarily here thinking of them in a historic recreationist sort of way, but picking up the gestalt of the thing, if it were. But so. I'm not sure if that's a word that gets bandied about too much at the historical review boards, but they just seemed appropriate to bring the scale of that porch down so it's not flying off. But and moreover, what I don't want them to be is like a high Victorian curly cued thing. It never works. It fails every time you try. So they're really there just as sort of scale markers to me.
I understand that from a design aesthetic. I guess the question is why you would need them at all. And and I don't want to belabor the point. It is minor compared to some of the other things that we've discussed, but.
Maybe it's just part and parcel of the whole porch rail system too. They're really not separate issues. And if the porch rail system goes back to a more historical, just vertical picket, maybe that bracketing goes the same way.
And then the other note, when we're talking about the front, you've got you've noted a full-size brick veneer base. The full-size brick veneer base is going to be masked by the shrubs. Is that correct? It's going to.
Largely, it depends on the shrubs, and of course, there are four other elevations, and there's chimney as well. So there's brick that you're going to see. Maybe it's a terminology question. When I say full-size brick, it means it's not thin set. It's not thin. It's thick.
Right. I understand that.
It's real brick.
Yeah, real brick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's cheaper than the thin brick, believe it or not.
Yes.
Who knew?
Right. Exactly. We don't need to discuss the.
But that's what we see. I also so.
I have a question. In the eave, is that all venting? That whole like upper portion
No, it's
of
just
it?
it's a decorative pattern, louver-like, but it's not venting. No.
I just like to make a comment. I did a walk-by over there. You really hit the theme of the pitched roof, considering the neighbors that are there across the street. And it looks like in your drawing, that's a main feature of this house, and I think that in particular is just going to fit right in.
Yeah, yeah, I think.
I'm going to have to question the map, first of all, that you saw that said it wasn't on before 1915, because from Greg Pritchard, who's done more research than any of us, came the following sentence. This is one of the group of the first 10 homes built in North Wayne around 1884 by Wendell and Smith. And he would need to see a great deal of evidence, and I'm really going to have to agree, if it's in that category, that the house was unsalvageable before even considering its replacement. If restored, it could be a perfect example of what makes North Wayne locally and nationally significant district. And as you know, it was put on the National Historic Register long before anything else was put on. Its loss would set a dangerous precedent for the rest of the neighborhood. I will note that the Harb was established after the loss of a less significant home in the same neighborhood, and since its formation, the Harb has never approved a demolition of a home in North Wayne. So I think you know where I'm going to stand on this. I totally, totally agree with him, because there are some glaring examples of reproductions in good faith and, you know, this kind of thing. But when you have this kind of thing, when you have one of the first 10 homes built, you're dealing with one additional layer of importance. And sure, we could rip all of them down and build all shiny new houses, but
I think I can help you with your decision. And I think Ray could verify this. About 2 years ago, the whole chimney on the center of that house collapsed and fell into the driveway. That house has been stuccoed over existing old brick, and if you were to pull the stucco off the side of it, it's in very bad shape. The original basement there is original stone basement, which, and you're more than welcome to come over anytime. But I really don't think the structure of this house, and if you look back into prior to me owning it, there was a fire in this house also, which was part of that same chimney. So I think structurally the house is not, I mean, what you would have to do to this house to bring it back to its original and to make it a house that people would want to live in today, you wouldn't be salvaging much. It really, if this house was the original brick and structurally sound, I think, yeah, I'd agree with you, but I don't think this house is structurally sound.
Have you had an engineer do a report?
You're
or anything?
speaking to one.
You're an engineer. Okay.
no, I would almost prefer deferring this and getting some, you know, seeing it. I would prefer deferring a decision on this and getting a little bit more information with regard to the structural integrity.
Have we in the past requested, and are we okay requesting an engineering report?
Well, you know, another thing, I think Ray might be able to chime in anytime you want, but this property has been a student rental property for many years, and it is a duplex, and we're taking it from a duplex and making it into a single-family home. So I think the neighbors would be probably happy that the house did come down and a new structure would be there, which would obviously increase the value of the neighborhood.
The value of the neighborhood is so largely dependent upon its historic, the historic nature of the houses there. It's not just the school system.
Change is good.
As a point of, historically, was that a duplex historically when it was put in?
No.
I just want to, you're so, and maybe this isn't my place to comment. Everything that Mr. Sprango said is true. There was a chimney collapse, there was a fire. It is a duplex now. They want to take it back to a single-family home. So with that being said, if you're so willing to keep it, it wasn't originally a duplex when it was put up.
When you say duplex, are you talking?
Two apartments.
twins
Two
or
apartments,
duplex?
there's a downstairs, upstairs, they have separate stairways, separate entrances. So historically, I don't think that's the way it was done. So by putting it back to a single-family home, I think you're accomplishing more as a board to put it back to a single-family dwelling as opposed to a duplex rental.
Are you saying the township rules would not allow this to be restored from a duplex to a single?
No, I think he's saying that I wouldn't allow it.
No, but I'm just asking. I
Would
mean,
the- would
is there
the town-
anything that would prevent this from retaining its original?
No, I understand what you're saying, but I'm not willing to do that.
Well, that.
That making it
there's
back into a
difference.
single-family home as it sits, I'm not willing to do. I would leave it as a duplex.
That's what I'm talking about. There's
Yeah.
a difference. Because I think your profit would probably surely be greater if you build a nice new, shiny new home, but that's not the nature of the neighborhood.
I don't consider that a shiny new home. I consider that architecturally nice cedar shake home.
Is anyone on this board right now interested in recommending a certificate of appropriateness?
I would with conditions. Maureen,
I'm not.
Terry, have you seen the outside of this place?
Yeah.
Oh, you did? Okay, so you saw the window.
Oh, my gosh, I've lived in the township for 45 years, so, and
Okay.
believe me, I've been by it.
Terry, what exactly is it that you were looking
I would restore the exterior. If you want to make it a single-family house, make it a single-family house, but maintain the original shape, foundation,
for? So,
and probably, if we try hard enough, we'll find a picture that would restore the original.
So I'm going to jump in here and make a couple comments. The house that you're proposing, I think, needs to reflect the neighborhood a little bit more. You yourself said that the metal porch roof is an architectural highlight. That's not a highlight seen anywhere in this district. So there's that. There's some issues with the porch and just it's not reflecting the neighborhood. That being said, before I could vote an approval for a certificate of appropriateness, I'd need to know for sure that this needs to be torn down. So I don't know you, I don't know your credentials. It would help me a lot to have some sort of report come across my desk that says, you know, it's not safe, the township has deemed this home not safe and it needs to be torn down.
So those are two different things, and so the first one's rather easy. You know, we're coming here, as I would to my board, and your comment is, here, I don't want a metal roof, I don't think that's appropriate. The porch rails, we've mentioned, and those are obviously easy things to change now. Here, okay, we agree to do that. You know, relative to the rest of the house, and, you know, I don't think its appropriateness could be questioned that extreme. I mean, it's, you know, I don't see how many, I don't know how many cedar roof homes you see new here going on. And, you know, so clearly we're going above and beyond and making a lovely building here. This is not your vinyl asphalt
I think
roof
it's beautiful.
thing. So there's only that.
But that doesn't
So-
matter
So
for
those are the
historic
architectural
furniture.
features that we can have that conversation and sort of settle them here and now. The other issue about the structure's viability is one I can't answer standing here. And if that's what has to happen to move this forward, then that's what Mr. Sparango has to take that on. But again, this is not a zoning board, but nevertheless, the scale of the building, its location, all of these things are good things. This is a good thing. This building. Yeah. Yeah. Obviously. Yeah. I mean, those are very easy things to do.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to accept with recommendations, and those recommendations being the replacement of the metal roof to complement the cedar shake and the rest of the building, the removal of the decorative brackets, the removal of the horizontal bracings in the railings, and one other that we hadn't discussed, and that is the simplification of the chimney brick design from a herringbone to a straight horizontal vertical design. I think that would be more in keeping with the rest of the neighborhood from what I've seen. I would like to add to that I think that it's imperative that we not only look towards the history, but also towards the desire for the neighborhood to be able to retain a single-family home type structure rather than duplex. The continued evolution of this particular property in response to the various destructive occurrences that have happened, I think warrant a more extreme type of restructuring, whether that happens to be a complete tear down and rebuild, or at least a considerable construction improvement, something that goes beyond just simply refacing the exterior. So, in sum, my recommendation is a motion to accept with those recommendations stipulated.
All in favor
Of approving
of approving?
the tear down? I'm absolutely not.
So there's only 2 in favor. We don't have a quorum, and we can't recommend the certificate at this time.
Thank you.
Are you sure that Greg Pritchard is right about the description of that property?
Nobody has done, not only did he grow up in Wayne, but he has done,
Oh.
he sent me the Midland pictures, so that's our next topic.
Even on Radnor's own website with their maps,
I-
there is nothing there until
I'll
about
check
1950.
mine, I have.
Okay. We've got HARB 2016-05, 205 Midland Avenue, looking to do some renovation work. Please go ahead.
Get myself off. Can I get that? My name is Elizabeth Springer, and I am working with Beth and Nate Connor on some renovations to their home at 205 Midland Avenue. And we'll start with the site plan. They are on the 200 block of Midland. Their home is, we're proposing an addition off the rear of the home, so it's kind of a two-part project. The first part is that we would like to propose to put a breezeway of sorts between a porch and an existing kitchen to connect the two, because the back area of this home is used as a family room, and we'd like to expand the family room into this porch off the back and then be able to tie that to the kitchen, because the home is not set up to have direct access to the family room, so that breezeway would allow you to connect those two rooms to service a family with children. And the only other proposal off of the rear of the home is a patio. Again, we haven't gone through the grading permit application yet, so even though we've presented some total square footages, we're looking to, this is a very modest addition. It's really just to connect the two parts of the home and to be able to do some renovations in a very small kitchen and to be able to make it so a family of 5 can live in that space comfortably. The rest of the back of the house is pretty much the same, just opening up the homes into that space. So to give you a better idea, this is a little bit bigger of a picture that can help you, and I've used some highlighters to kind of indicate what's happening. This is the current outdoor porch area structure. It is not, I don't know quite if this was original to the home or not, but this area right here was the outdoor porch, so most likely it's not original to the home. This porch right here is very typical of many of the houses on Midland Avenue, the colonial style homes that are symmetrical with a porch off the side. This particular home, as you can see in the photograph, I'll get one that's further back. As you can see in the photograph, it's to the left, and you can see the different color roof surfaces. So at some point in time, this was enclosed entirely, and the second floor mimicked the front of the house. The roof was put on, and this is a bedroom up in this area and the family room down in here, which we'd like to, because it was the porch, and the porches on Midland Avenue, they're really small. So to be able to take over the piece in the back would be really helpful to actually making a legitimate sized family room, and then to be able to connect it to the kitchen and to let the kitchen expand a little bit. So this area in the orange here is the breezeway that's connecting it. There's a deck right now that we would like to cover a portion of it, remove the deck that's not original, obviously, and put a little side porch. So when you come up, you're going into the doorway with some covering over your head. And the deck is older. It's not, it just was something put up out of a matter of convenience. And then this area off the back would be a raised patio, so that when you were in the breezeway or the family room, you could get out onto the patio and have some outdoor living space. To give you some views of the home, this is the front of the home. You have these pictures hopefully as well in your packet. And this is the rear of the home. You can see that the rear of the home is just like the one at 207 Midland Avenue. It's a colonial style home. Here is the kitchen extension that was put on. This extension was added in, I think, the 1980s or something, 86, and they just used, it's a wood-framed house, and so they just used kind of some of the same details and pulled them across, but otherwise the back of the house looks like the one next door, looks like 215, looks like 219. They're all the same colonial home, center hallway, symmetrical house. And this is the porch that we'd like to enclose. And again, that's been put off of the back of the family room when it went from a porch to a family room. And let's see here if there's any other pictures of the house. Here are some examples of the colonial homes on 206. As you can see, they're set up exactly like this house is, just with some different details. So all of them have this center hall colonial with the staircase that comes to a landing. They have the dining room on the right-hand side, the living room on the left-hand side. Yeah, they're a very typical layout of a colonial home. And so our goal is to do a renovation off the back as the first part of the project to allow them to connect the two spaces. And I will show you the drawings from the rear as proposed. Okay, so looking at the rear of the home, we'll start down here on the right side elevation. This is the driveway side, and this piece of the structure, the first floor part, is existing. And this was the piece that, the back portion of it right here was extended in the 1980s. And you can see that it's completely different foundation, although it's been made to look like a stone foundation that, they didn't replicate it. They just added on with different color and everything like that. But we would maintain this, so we're not adding any square footage in this area. We're simply extending the second floor and the third floor of the house, just like 215, just like 219. And we would like to be able to have more bedroom space up there. Because when they added the bedroom, when they closed the porch up and they put this bedroom up here, you have to go through other bedrooms to get to it. So it doesn't really make sense when you have children. You only have one available bedroom on the other side, and then all the parents or the kids have to walk through the parents' bedroom or vice versa to use that space. So they'd like to be able to extend off onto the second floor, put an optional third floor. We do, as you can see from some rear elevation shots, we have a couple of options. We have some dormers proposed at the top to give you the headroom that you need to use that third floor space, just like they had done with the original dormer. And this dormer can be seen on the other homes as well. So again, the back of the house is very typical. We do have an option as well where we may even put a dormer in this location, as you can see there. It's just really depending on budget, because we have, here's the option if you do this one here. As you know, with these older homes, they've got 2x6 roof rafters, and oftentimes they're spliced on knee walls. This portion over here, because it was new, was 2x12s, which is great. It gives you some options for some dormers, but you still are having to join with the 2x6. So there's sometimes that makes it a little complex in the structure and often adds some additional costs that might not be worth it. So we want to have some options. Should that not work, we would eliminate that, and that's really going to be on a cost basis, and be able to do the dormers that replicate these instead, which you can see. The only reason the windows are larger in this plan than this plan is because they have to be egress. So we can't use this same size window on a third floor bedroom space because you wouldn't be able to get out of it. Other than that, the windows that we are proposing are staying the same throughout. You can see on the left side elevation, which is not the driveway side, it's the opposite side. We've got the windows are carrying across. We're keeping with the same size window as is in that area, so that when you look at it from the street, you will see that the windows carry through as if it was a seamless and constructed at one time. And let's see, this is the breezeway area that would connect the two pieces. So this is the roof line of the porch. We've obviously changed it because the shed style roof comes down really low. So, and because that wasn't an original part of the house, it's really not constructed to be as a formal living area underneath it. So we would like to reconstruct it in a more traditional colonial style, and then be able to tie that piece to the kitchen area over here. You can see the details of 3 windows or sometimes 4 windows on this side over here is a typical detail in this home, and we carried it through to the back side of the kitchen as well to take one of the architectural elements and bring that through. And even though we did have to go larger windows, we still have the 3 windows. So we're trying to keep at least the numbers and proportions pretty much the same. And let's see, all the windows on the upper floors here, they'll either be double hungs where they can, but obviously we have to have 1 per room that we can get out of. So there might be a chance where in certain rooms, like when you're looking at the side, you don't see the double hung there. It's because we need egress. So sometimes you can get the window with the check rail in it and it can look the same, but either way it's got to operate as a casement, or it has to be a heck of a lot larger, and that wouldn't look great. So we're keeping the theme throughout. It's a stucco home right now. And let's see if I can find any other pictures that might be helpful. That was just the other dormer option. It's a stucco home right now, and the idea is that we would like to try and carry that through as feasible. But as you know, sometimes when you have stucco on one level and then on another level you have the seam, because of the different requirements for stucco now that may not have been instituted at the time this house was built. So they might end up having to put siding on the back of the home, but siding is typical of the other homes in the neighborhood. In fact, the home next door is the exact same layout with siding on it. So we would choose something like a hardy board that would look like a cedar board that would have been used at that time period. So stucco is an option, but there's also the chance that just due to installing the material and making sure that you don't have stucco issues, we might end up doing regular paneling. So that's the first part. Any questions on the first part of it? Should I go to the second part?
Is it on? Not only the house, but the street, as it looked originally. The houses are quite unique, and one of the things that is most unique about this, of course, is that it's a half-timber design. And this shows that in the original picture, there was in fact a porch on the side, but that when the addition was put on, it was with absolute fidelity to the original design in terms of the dormers, in terms of the half-timber design. And what I think that you're proposing is to turn it into, quote, a colonial. That's not what it was. It's the uniqueness of the neighborhood depends so much on the designs of the houses from one to the other, and not slapping on a new siding because new stucco doesn't go with old stucco. The fact of the matter is that what should be saved above all is the way this was built. We don't have, in this township, Lower Merion has more, this township doesn't have a lot of half-timber houses. If you think and drive around, you're not going to see very many. It's one of the very few. I think that that is worthy of preservation. And so I'm not going along with the colonial design.
Terry, may I ask a question? Is the intent to change the design aesthetic of the house?
So we have that was about the front of the house. This, we haven't gotten to that point yet.
The Historic and Architecture Review Board, our jurisdiction, if you may, ultimately is what you can see from the public areas of the township, meaning the streets. So if you are, if you're talking about, any changes to the roof lines that may be visible from the streets, dormers, changing in the grade or the slope of the roof line, then certainly that would fall within our discussion. If you're talking about the siding material that's used in the back, it is not.
Correct.
And so, Terry, I just want to make sure that you're aware of that as well. Terry, thank you. Terry, do you hear me?
I'm going to make a comment in the meantime. Everything that you're proposing is in the back of the house.
Well, no, that was the first part. There's two parts to this project.
Part. Okay.
The back part, again, all we're doing is bringing the second floor out and putting a breezeway to connect two rooms. That was all we were proposing in the back.
Okay.
Okay. In the front of the home, we are not proposing to alter the pitch of the roof. We are not proposing to change the windows. We are not proposing to change the stucco. All we were doing is asking if we can put some dormers in the space to make it livable space up there. The pitch is very low. There's limited light and headroom, and we'd like to do what other houses on the street did in the beginning. And this is the exact same layout as other houses on the street, and we'd like to be able to put some additional light into there. And we would like to also be able to put an entrance in there that's a little different than the one that's there. The reason is because this house feels like it has an identity crisis. It is a colonial home that has an applique of some things on there. But a typical Tudor Revival home is asymmetrical. This is not asymmetrical. It has steeply pitched roofs. This does not have a steeply pitched roof. The entrance this is a standard colonial home with some appliques, and who knows why they were there. The architect is not known for this particular block. The builder is estimated, they think they know who the builder might have been, but there's no real record. I've been to the Historical Society on that. I've met with Greg Pritchard on this. I've talked with him about the home. I have the same picture you have. But the thing is it's not meeting a Tudor Revival home. It does not have, the timbering is not the true half timbering. It's got pieces of it, but it's not the way it actually looked. There's no brick pattern in there. There's no shingle siding. There's no half-round or arch doors. There's no standard brick chimney with terracotta pot over the top. There's no tall, narrow, multi-line windows. It's a standard colonial home. And for some reason, it's got this applique on the front that doesn't fit the neighborhood and doesn't fit the house. The homeowners don't like it. We have support from the neighbors saying how much they would approve this house to actually have the right identity to it and not be a little bit of both, because it's hard to add on to a house that's a little bit of both. What do you do? And it's not attractive the way it is, and they would like to bring it back to mimic the homes of the neighborhood and to actually be cleaned up and have a very beautiful curb appeal. And the support of the neighbors has been documented in your packet as well.
I think it would be very hard to find a street with as many varied styles as Midland, so I don't think you can fairly use one of the pictures sent, which shows a curved doorway, to justify the curve here, because
Well, we can
they're
use
not
other
the
types
same.
of entrances. I mean, we could
Absolutely
use
not the same.
we could use a more colonial with the reason this one was chosen most of all is because it does replicate one of the other homes on the street. It's very similar to 219 and 215. So we were trying to bring an item in, but we could also do the gable roof there. But you've got to pick one or the other. It's not fitting, it's just got appliques on a colonial home.
It would be a very, very different home when you're done. It would in no way look like it did before. And I'm going to have to say, the home, the first edition that was done, if you look at the original and you look at this, was absolutely faithful reproduction. Long before my HARB came into being, somebody actually had the sensitivity to understand that it was its uniqueness that needed to be preserved.
Elias Peisner said that no human institution lives long unless it meets a human need. So despite the idea that a human heart could have intent that lasts longer than the human life, I think that the pictures that are in question that show the original intent of the house show it without some of the boarding that exists there today. I have concern over the entryway. I think that that's a little bit out of place for the neighborhood. I don't have concern over the dormers, having driven around the neighborhood and knowing the neighborhood because I live close by. I don't have concern over it because it's very similar to some of the others. And I would say that one of the efforts that we need to make as a board is being able to work with the homeowners in order to be able to preserve the integrity of the neighborhood and the design aesthetic that's being proposed for this property. Aside from, I would say, the entryway is not so radical that it's going to disturb that.
We're not proposing to remove the stucco there. We're not proposing to change the slope of the roof or move the front around in any way. We just would like to remove those gable dormers. We're happy to change this pitch to something more like what's next door. And this is the same house next door. We're happy it has siding on it. We're happy to do something more like this with columns, just to give some protection. I mean, there's a few different options that you can do there that they're quite happy to do.
And plus, most of what you're doing is in the back of the house.
Yes,
When I did a
all of the
walk-by,
addition is in the back of the house.
You can't even see the back from the road. That's
No, you can. It's tucked back there, and it's very similar
And
to what's been done.
The other houses are like that, too.
Oh, yes.
You can't see their backs.
Correct.
And I will be very frank with you, I would be very much less concerned with the family room addition in the back and that
Sure,
kind of
I
thing.
understand that. I understand that, but
This is important. This is the kind of preservation that we're talking about.
yeah, but I think one of my concerns is that I know they did an addition in the 80s that, or whatever it was, maybe even before that, for this closing the porch and everything like that. But it doesn't mean that they necessarily were doing it from a historic standpoint. I mean, sometimes people, they want to add on, they don't really know what to do, so they just copy what's there, but it doesn't mean that what was there should have been there. And, that's one of the things I really want to impress upon is that, sometimes we don't know, just by nature of what your experience is or, who the builder was or who the homeowner was. For heavens, when they built this house, person who could have been a colonial home and, the owner could have come in and said, oh, I wish I moved into that Tudor Revival down the street. Would you just put those on the front of my colonial for me? It doesn't mean that that's the way it should be. And it looks a little out of place. And that's what we're trying to impress upon, that sure, they did an addition to the side, they enclosed the porch. Maybe they shouldn't have done it that way.
Well, I would love to redesign the whole, interior of my house, because I can promise you that a house built in 1895 is not the easiest thing to live with.
It's not.
Does it justify what, doing anything to rip apart the Victorian porch or the look or the dormers? I wouldn't let our roof, when we had central air put in, and he told me it would not make it to the 3rd floor, I would not let him touch the slate on the side to put in
Yes, but
an
that's,
air conditioner. They're little sacrifices that you have to make if you buy old.
yes, but there's also the fact that these houses will fall apart if they're not taken care of, and
But
we don't consider these
We're not
types
talking about
of
not
things.
taking care of it. We're talking about what you're talking about is a total alteration
Oh,
of
but
the
it's-
original look.
But it's not, I mean, we're keeping everything in the front, we're not touching, tearing apart porches and tearing apart the integrity and the bones of the house. We're not doing any of
You're
that.
changing the outward appearance, and we can't dictate what's going on inside the house. That's not our power. Whether, you can open up a wall and combine a living room and kitchen. But our job here is to maintain the integrity of the way it was intended to look. And I have a street scene that shows the way it was intended to look. And it's here, if you want to see it.
Well, I mean, here's another option of something you could do, even leaving the half timbering and still be able to bring in some dormers. And here's the other porch roof we were talking about. So there's ways to, it's just that if it's stucco, we're not taking it off. We're not taking it off. We can paint the timbers. It's not a problem. We just want to change the entranceway and put some dormers so you can get some living space up there.
But it's not going to be a half-timbered house.
Well, it's still got the fake ones, but they're not a true half timbering
You see
anyway.
But that's what I'm saying. It's not going to retain the look that the person who first altered it quite some time along, when they filled in the porch, they managed to retain the look and the whole feel of the house.
What specifically are you looking to preserve?
The whole half-timbered look of the house, which is very, and as I'm talking about as it faces the street, because you can do more with the rear of a house, but what we're
I
talking
understand
about
that.
is
So
a whole
you want to
neighborhood
preserve the
look.
half-timbered look.
So we can
What
put
are we
that-
looking at right here?
This is the half timber put back.
And what design is this? Is this existing or is this
It's existing.
proposed?
It's what's there right now. It's just
Okay.
painted brown, and it's still the stucco, and we were just going to take the appliques off if we went completely to a more colonial bones of the house. But if the half timbering is something that you would like to keep, it can stay. That's there right now, just like that.
But no, it doesn't.
Yeah, that's what it's,
That's
Okay.
not the way it looks right now.
Let me weigh in a little bit on this.
well, we're not
So-
going to change what's there.
I understand Terry's concern with the look of the front of the house. Basically, you're changing roof lines, and our jurisdiction is how does this look from the street? And, we want to preserve the historic nature of that. What I would like to say, though, is that all the additions on the rear of the house are perfectly fine with me, and I could recommend a certificate of appropriateness for all the renovations in the back without any conditions or recommendations.
I concur.
And if we want to take a vote on that, can we break this in half and take a vote on that piece? No, it's all or nothing?
If I can butt in here, understand if these homeowners want to go put white vinyl siding up, they don't have to come in front of you. So as an alternative, if they were to put white vinyl siding up, wouldn't go in front of the board. What kind of integrity would you have to maintain whatever it is you're trying to do? I thought what the board was supposed to help and recommend was to look at the overall project, to look at the scale. No one is going to build this house exactly or build an addition exactly the way the builder built it back in 18 or 17 or whenever he did it, 19. It is supposed to be a marry of images, and the scale and the proportions of what is supposed to be happening is supposed to be there. It's not a 100% preservation. Our ordinance does not say the home must be 100% preserved in its original form. It doesn't say that. There's no intent for that. The intent is to marry what the needs are nowadays with the materials nowadays. So in reality, if they said, okay, they could come, they don't even have to come in, they could actually put white vinyl siding on this house and lose everything. So they're saying they want to change it to something else that is in the neighborhood. Is this something that the board would consider? Or is the Tudor pattern something that the board would consider? But it doesn't say, nowhere in our ordinance does it say it must be preserved 100% original.
I don't think any of this has ever assumed 100% preserved, ever. But what we are.
Well, you keep holding, Terry, I'm sorry, but you keep holding up that original picture saying this is what it needs to be. And it doesn't need to be that. There's been changes, and it's going to continue to change as they go. So if there's a specific item or detail or something that you'd like to preserve, I think maybe you could recommend or ask if that would be a consideration. But remember, too, the board cannot dictate materials being used. Tin roofs are allowed. And so are frets, and so are the porch poisons.
No, I think
we don't have, according to our ordinance, we don't have that purview. We don't pick colors. So I think in things like this, if it's something that really sticks out, that they're changing from everything in a barrel bolt type design, and now they're going to all A-frames, that would be something that wouldn't fit in. So please pick and choose carefully, but they could do away with everything by putting white vinyl siding up there, and
Can I
we'd
make a
lose
comment?
everything.
When I went down Midland to do a walk by, so I went down around the whole street, and the thing that struck me, one of my observations was, and with this property, there was a lot of great synergy. You know, I felt like things were connected the way they looked, especially houses that look similar to this one on Midland, which aren't very far away except for the front porch. So I want to throw that observation out there. I felt that it was a nice synergy and it was connected. That was my feeling, my observation when I walked this street, without knowing the specific history of the house. And I can understand, Terry, what you would like to do in that regard. I think it's important. But also, too, what Greg was saying, and just that whole feel, that's, again, without having the specifics of the history, that's how I felt about it. Again, just an observation I wanted to share with you, and also with my fellow members of the board.
Yeah, well, we're not proposing to change the roof lines. We're just asking to put some dormers in because the third floor space has no light coming from the front of the house. It's other houses in the street that have the same setup, have dormers in their third floor. We'd like to continue that, whether we do them as gables or whether we do them as circle tops. It doesn't matter. If you have a preference, we can do one versus the other. But we're not touching the main bones of the house. We're just changing the front entrance and asking to put some dormers in. That's all.
What I've seen in the neighborhood are circle tops without the round top windows.
Yeah, so this, it's a combination here as well. Circle top, and this one has the one like this one. And so, you know, again, a combination of any of these work, and we discussed that ahead of time. couldn't come in with like 6 different plans here of combinations. So we took 2 very different ones and said we can mix and match.
The first picture you showed us of the way it would look had curved windows, curved dormers, and a curve over the door front.
Mhm. I mean, we can do it, we can combine these with this, we can combine this with this, or we can say something like this. We're giving some options because we know that there might be something specific that you might like to see. So we're showing you that we're open to some ideas and hope that maybe you can work with us on what you prefer to see so that we do this in a way that represents everybody's input. That's what we're asking for right now. And we need to do something to the identity of this house, and they'd like to make some changes. We just want your help.
It would be nice to see a design that more reflected the house's appearance, the fact that it is a half timber, one of the very few in the township, one of the things that makes the street almost unique in the variety of style. It has, by the way, next door to each other, do you remember the Eharts? You've been around the township long enough to remember, Dan and Bill, you had 2 of the best bungalow-style architecture houses in the township. I mean, they are much larger than the Clover Lane houses, and they're just fabulous. And they're not the same style as the half timber, they're not the same style as the colonial, but they are treasures, they're absolute treasures. So if somebody were to say, boy, I'm gonna take this and, add some dormers here and there, it really, when you have a handful in the township of a certain style of architecture in a certain time period, you don't want to change the whole nature of the street.
I don't think we're changing the nature of the street,
No.
though. And the
What
timbering, we're
I'm
telling
saying
you.
we're not trying to make our curved dormers look like somebody else's curved dormers and bring a picture of a house with curved dormers to show that they exist. I know they exist. Believe me, I used to work about, right on the other side of the line, so to speak, on Lancaster Avenue. I was there for years and years. So I'm more familiar with Midland than almost any street in the township.
Excuse
But
me.
really, it's unique.
Point made, I think.
What,
Oh, do you-
what is it that you're looking for? I'm kind of confused over here. Are you looking for no windows on the 3rd floor for dormers? Are you looking for round ones or
I'm looking
peaked
for
ones?
dormers that more reflect, first of all, retain the half-timber architecture. Don't change the, really, in fact, you did a lovely close-up of it, which only reinforces this wonderful little
All right, Terry, I'm going to cut you off.
portico over the front door.
I would like to see you keep the current, I don't have the terminology, but the pointed eaves. I think that's what makes this house special in the neighborhood. I'm not against having dormers, but how can we kind of keep that? Is there a way to keep the current roof line with the eaves in it and add dormers as well?
I don't think that would look very good together because you're mixing 2 different things unless you feel differently. It looks odd because the whole idea is to line them up, and you would have a dormer underneath. You would have an applique underneath the dormer, so it probably wouldn't look very good. I'm just moving them up, basically, just so we can have usable space, so we can have light.
If those were not circle top windows and they were square windows to match the bottoms, at the bottom 2 floors, would that make a difference?
I'm sorry?
If the windows in the
If
dormers.
the windows in the newly formed gables were not circle top, they were squares. They were true double hung windows. Would that make a difference?
Well, I think
I mean, we can we're just saying, can we take this and raise it up?
there's an alteration. Now, if you'll move your colored picture. Have we transformed it into a colonial? I mean, it's lovely and it's symmetrical, but that era was just on the pivotal point between people who hated anything symmetrical until the centennial of 1876 revived an interest in colonial, appreciating the colonial instead of tearing it all down, which is what they did in the 1850s. But, and it was at a pivotal point, but
Terry,
this
I
type of
think
architecture-
we're done talking about the
No,
history
but
and
I'm
whatnot. We're
I'm
trying
just
to help
trying
give them
to retain
recommendations.
as much of the original design as possible, and if
Yes,
there's
and I'm not
something that
touching
you
the
can
bones of the home.
do that makes it look, that keeps the half timber, that keeps this door frame, among other things.
You keep mentioning the half timber. We said we're happy to leave it there, but again, like Ray said, we don't need to ask permission for that. But we're happy to keep it there. We're just saying, can we put some light in the third floor, please? May we raise the dormers up to put light in the third floor, please?
And how about the door?
Sure, we would like to change that as well to something
But that's
different.
what I'm saying, that's one of the major things that I think should be retained.
Okay, well, can we put some columns on it? Can we do something to it to make it a little bit more functional? It's so dark and it doesn't match the house.
That's not a functional piece, it's a decorative piece, because people in that era
So we're not
believed that
messing-
decoration was art.
Yeah, but it's kind of a mix of a couple different styles of home, and we're just trying to give it some identity. And we've got support from the neighbors, and we just like to try and make this house a little bit more functional from the inside, get some light in, and give it a little bit of a curb appeal.
Miles, excuse me, whole idea of public meeting is that everything gets out to everybody, the three people that are sitting at home, four now.
Happy to,
because Brian goes
yeah,
back
yeah,
home.
exactly. Happy to go on record with this. My feeling about this is I have absolutely no issue with the addition of the dormers. I'd like to see them peaked rather than rounded. I'd rather see the windows mimic what we have on the second floor and the first floor than have the round tops, in order to be able to just keep the style in keeping with the rest of the house. The issue that I do have is with the use of the columns in the front for the entryway. The Federalist Revival style is not in keeping with the rest of the house, and I think that it's a little bit of a disconnect from the design that I understand, and you can show the pictures.
Oh, no, I was just saying,
but
would
my
you prefer it
feeling,
without the columns?
there are no columns there right now.
Sure, sure.
So keep it without the columns.
Okay.
Keep the roof line in the slope for the entryway the way you have it. In terms of functionality, and I appreciate the argument, and I don't think that we actually have any type of say in terms of functionality, but in functionality, you actually have a broader coverage in the width of the covered area for the entryway that you have right now. So I would just say my stance on this to the rest of the board, to the public at large, is that I'm happy with the additional the dormers without the round tops. I'd like to be able to see the covered entryway without the pillars.
Okay.
And as far as the rest of the aesthetics, I'm happy to see that you're maintaining the aesthetic of the house as it exists.
So I'm going to kind of give my opinion too. The rear piece, absolutely fine with. Most of that isn't seen from the road anyway, so that's fine. My concern is very much the same as what we just heard. I feel like the doorway area needs to, I mean, I'm not sure what the purpose is. Right now, that's an ornamental piece. I feel like there's not a reason that I can see to change it. Adding dormers, I don't have a problem with. I feel, though, that they should mimic what you're taking out. Just bring them up to the third floor with the square windows and the triangle tops, and that's,
Okay.
just keep the design of the house true to what it is, but just expand it for needs of every day. That would be my recommendation if we do approve this.
Well, as I said before, again, when I walk by there and everything you're doing in the back of the house, I feel is fine in that way. As far as, I also agree with at least like the second story windows, to make those also square too on the top floor. So I agree with that, with
That's
what you
right.
were saying, Janelle. Now, as far as that door, I know this is kind of like an issue for Miles. If I'm not mistaken, I think that all the houses that look somewhat like this on that block don't have any columns. Am I remembering that correctly? And is
That's
that an
a good
important
question.
thing to have, or?
I don't think they do have columns. This was just,
No.
I think most of them are without columns.
Yeah, I think.
Yes, and
yeah,
we're-
I
I
think
mean-
that is the case. Just wanted to refresh my memory.
Yes, you're right.
But boy, wouldn't it be nice to do something there, maybe, a little bit? Because you got like 5 or 6 other houses that had that same type of outdoor roof. Maybe we can do something.
There's a roof over the entryway already, is there not?
Yes, there is a roof
Yeah.
over the
So-
entryway.
So, the question isn't for the board to recommend doing something more. It's simply to be able to maintain or to preserve the integrity of the aesthetic, right?
Totally understand that.
Okay.
But you had mentioned that
Yeah,
you would
I mean,
maybe
even-
like to possibly do something.
Or even if we just did
More.
something like the neighbors they did, where it is still a gable, but it just doesn't have the columns. Not necessarily having the roof on the 2 sides, we're not looking to do that, but just to be able to do something not as large there.
I feel that would be an issue considering going down there again. It's like, at least with that front door area, they all really truly look the same, even as far as color of the roof.
Here's what I'm looking at when I see it. If you don't mind moving the photograph of the
Sure.
house over, the one that you've got, the color photograph that you just had.
Oh, you want to see this one?
Yeah, if you just put that up there.
This one?
So, yeah, so what you'll see is that the pitch of the roof over the entryway is parallel to the pitch of the roof of the dormers. Okay, that's an important aspect to the design of the house.
Yes.
Right, so when I'm thinking about, what is it that you want to be able to accomplish? And how do you maintain that complement? If you're able to preserve the same parallel structures in the
Absolutely.
dormers,
Sure.
that satisfies my concerns.
Okay, which we plan on doing.
Okay.
I mean, we want to keep the pitches the same throughout. That's part of historical accuracy.
Okay.
So I agree with you.
Are you interested in an approval of a certificate of appropriateness with the front porch left the same, with a condition that the front porch is the same? Or are you absolutely?
May we do it with the same pitch of the roof, but just not have it so heavy over top of our head? Can we just lighten it up a little bit? It just goes down so far. Can we keep the same pitch of the roof and just bring it up a little bit? Same place, same pitch, just not have as much kind of on the sides.
If I can jump in, since the comment was made that the same pitch be kept for the dormers as would be on the door roof, then would that be a consideration that that roof could be adjusted to meet the new dormers up top?
I don't know what that
So
means.
you
That
have-
roof alone looks
you have
heavy.
you have steeper,
It
it looks
is.
like you have
Looks
steeper
heavy.
dormers up top. That porch roof now, or the front door roof seems to be more open, less of a pitch. Janelle, you made the comment
they're
that
the
it
same
seemed
pitch
to
right
be
now.
this way, where the dormers seem to be more in an A, the doors seem to be more this way. So they said they're willing to keep the door pitch the same as the dormer pitch, just lower it down over the front door? Would that satisfy?
It's just so, when you walk in, it just kind of hovers over your head. It's very draining. It's like smothering as you walk to the front door, and just trying to lighten it up a little bit. We can keep the pitch, we'll mimic it on the dormers. We just want to lighten it up a little bit. It's,
So keeping the same, but just kind of cutting it off at where
cutting it
the
off,
supports.
just trimming it up a little bit. Obviously, we have the windows above, we can't go any higher with it, we've got to keep it where it is, it's just not going to hang over us so much.
Well, I motion to accept with the recommendations that we had just put forth.
Concur.
Won't be preserved.
I am going to ask that we change that to the conditions that we put forth instead of the recommendations.
Agreed upon. So motion to accept with the conditions that we had just discussed.
So the conditions are, can we run through them just a minute?
Yes, you're not
Yes.
going to run through the conditions again, so
Great.
we can get them.
Absolutely.
I want to make sure I write them down.
Everything with the rear of the house is fine, with outside of what Radnor Township Harb has to decide upon. With the front of the house, we're talking about the addition of the dormers that you laid forth with the peaked caps. So at the same angles, so it looks like it's at a right angle, 90-degree angle, without the round tops. I mean,
Windows.
Yeah, exactly. And with the preservation of the angle over the entryway, but with the reduction of the overall scale.
Reduction of the scale or just reduction of the length? And are we asking them to keep the detail of the current dormers and replicate that, or just the scale?
Miles, if I could, I think we were keeping the A-framed to come down, so whatever that pitch would be, 5, 6, 8.
Yes.
Would be the same pitch as goes over the door, but not hanging down so far on the door.
Yep.
To mimic so that everything is symmetrical.
Yep, exactly.
Is that, okay.
Yep.
Okay, that's fine. So it's okay, we can do our paint colors the way we want to, because that's not from the board's perspective. And we can we can make it, as long as we keep with the angle, as long as we mimic that in the dormer and the roof, then we can work within that.
Right.
That's what,
So Janelle, that's
And
my
we're
motion so
mimicking-
stated. Yeah,
We're asking them to keep the detail.
keeping the
Okay.
detail. Yeah.
which detail do you?
It would be the new dormer detail would match the new front door detail.
Okay.
Okay, so that everything is symmetrical.
But we
everything
don't have to
matches?
keep the little peak at the top, we don't have to do that exact same design up at the top, when we can do a dormer detail like this.
That's what I was asking. Are we asking them to mimic the same design as part of your recommendation?
I would think if those dormers are okay the way they sit in the picture, and that is the drawn picture, not the color picture. Yes, where Ms. Springer is pointing. So that detail up there, then that roof line, the A pitch on that would also then mimic that at the front door entranceway.
Okay.
Again, keep everything symmetrical, keep it all in the same pitch, plane, everything looks like it was intended to be there, not different years, different makes, different models.
That's fine.
Is that what the board?
I don't know, let's take a vote, I guess, and see if that's what works. All in favor, say aye. I feel that the details should be kept, so that's my kind of sticking point on this.
What detail? We've eliminated all but 3 details now, so which detail is the one that the front door itself?
So are you talking about the returns on the, so there's one detail that I feel like we haven't addressed, and that is when we're talking about the dormers, there appears to be a slight return with a little bit of fascia there. Is that right? Is that the detail
We would
that?
still have a
that's-
return anyway. I mean, that's-
Okay, although there isn't a return currently on the dormers that exist on the second floor windows.
I like to build the rake board out, just like this one is built out. So the rake board would come towards you just as this one does, and just as the front entrance would. And then there is a rafter tail, and we would have, a soffit, just like this one has. It just might not be cut exactly the same, and we might not have a little piece at the top here that just sticks up.
Is
That's
this-
the only piece that we're asking, can we take those off? We'll keep the pitch, we'll keep the rake protruding, we'll keep the rafter tail overhanging, but we just want to take off the little piece at the top and move them up.
So is that the detail that you're talking about?
So a lot of times, architects will come to us and say, hey, we recognize that this is an integral feature of what this house looks like, and they'll try to reuse it when they can. What I'm hearing, though, is that you want to replace it with something new and a different design?
It will say that the windows, arches, the points that you see now will just go up. She's designing it exactly the same, except they're going to be on the road.
Do you mind, like, even the little piece that sticks up right here? That's the one we're talking about right now. Do you want that little piece there? I mean,
We had said that we would
if you're fine with keeping it, it's
take it off. I mean, I don't, what are you talking about? Can you show me?
This picture closely, because you can't build anything like that. No. I mean, that's what, that needs to be,
Here, she's got the microphone.
Thank you.
that needs to be preserved.
Okay. We're talking about preservation now. What Janelle was talking about was the preservation of this piece that's right here.
Changing the whole dormer. This-
fine with that. They're fine with the preservation of the piece.
this-
Do you want to?
If that has to be there, we'll put it there.
So this does need to be preserved.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just make a new recommendation, and we'll see if this one works.
Okay, try
All right.
again.
I'm going to recommend a certificate of appropriateness with the following conditions. That the architectural features on the front of the house, architectural design features on the front of the house are replicated, but they're replicated in those dorms on the third floor. So the second floor windows will stay the same. The roof line will then be straight across there without the pitches, but those pitches will be basically duplicated on the third level in the form of dormers.
Okay.
And then with the piece over the front door, basically that we'd like to see stay the same as well. If you want to take a bit off how far that comes down on either side, I'm fine with that too. So
Okay.
that is my recommendation. All in favor of that, say aye. So we have 3, so we can recommend that moving forward. At this time, I want to make sure there's no public comment. There's no one here, so I will assume not. Any new business to be brought forth? No? Any old business? No. This meeting is hereby adjourned.
Terry?
I'm not always the